Greetings, everyone. My name is Nizam Ismail. I'm one of the advisors to Amplify. A very warm welcome to you on this Ask Me Anything video. Just a quick introduction about myself. I have a regulatory and compliance or regulatory compliance DNA, having been formerly a regulator with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and also being involved in compliance leadership roles with investment banks here in Singapore. And right now I also run a compliance consultancy. Let's talk about Amplify. So just to recap, Amplify is a decentralized peer-to-business lending application. So what it does is that it enables quick and affordable financing through invoice tokenization and community-fueled liquidity. So let's jump to your questions. Again, thank you very much for your excellent questions. Remember, the best one will be rewarded. So let's move to the first question, and this is on a topic close to heart on compliance. So this is a question by Crypto Poppy. So the question is, what are your biggest worries compliance-wise for Amplify? So, as a compliance person, obviously your DNA is that you do the worrying for the business. And of course, in a project like this, which is essentially providing financial services, obviously one of the biggest worry that you would think about is, whether there are regulations that will impact on the offer of the services. So thankfully, the provision of financing through finance invoices is not a regulated activity. But then again, you always look out for regulations that are continuously developing. And that's just the nature of financial services, because regulations are always morphing. And of course, we need to be on top of things. Now, even for a project that is not regulated, obviously, we still want to make sure that the project is ethical, is still compliant, and is still, offers, fair dealing to all the users. And of course, one key area for us, obviously, is anti-money laundering and anti-terrorist financing. So we want to make sure we put a framework, even if we're not regulated, to make sure that we comply with those issues. So I hope that answers the question. Now, let's move on to question 2, and that's how Amplify works. So this is a question by bitcrypto_money, and the question is this: what does a company need to get a loan through Amplify? I mean, do you need to install a wallet, upload some documents? Could you explain how it works in more detail? If I represent a small business and want to take out a loan, what do I need to do? So just a reminder to the audience that we are still at the MVP stage. A wallet is definitely needed, as that is where the borrower will receive the funds when the loan is approved. And then, of course, there is a process of KYC or verification. All this needs to be done. The due diligence needs to be done to ensure that everything is in order, the transaction is a legitimate one. So you can then either upload on the Amplify stablecoins or other recommended stablecoins as collateral, and the company can then borrow against that. Alternatively, the company can also provide a standby letter of credit or a letter of credit for verification, along with the invoice, and that gets uploaded in the system for verification before the loan is disbursed. So I hope that answers the question. Just to sum up on the whole process, we want to focus on simplicity, efficiency, and transparency. Okay. Now the third question is on exchange listings. So in any token issuance, obviously that is an important issue to clarify. So this is a question by @bitcrypto_money. The question goes as follows: will the AMPT token be traded on third-party exchanges? If so, which ones? Perhaps you're already in negotiations with a platform or two. Our response is yes. The plan indeed is for the token to be traded on the top or the better decentralized exchanges, as well as some of the centralized ones. As we are still in the process of negotiating with these platforms, I'm afraid we're not able yet at this stage to disclose which ones, but do keep a lookout as we make the announcements going forward. Right? So that's the response to the question. And now question 4, again on compliance. This is a question by the Decentralist. The question goes as follows. Hey, Nizam, do you think DeFi will get regulated? That is a very important question, but let's just take a step back. So I think the first thing to note is that depending on how the project is structured, any DeFi project, some aspects of the project could already be regulated. So we need to look at the underlying economics of the project, the underlying financial transactions, and see if it is already governed by any current underlying regulations. Similarly, on the token issuance, there could already be existing regulations that govern the issuance. So for instance, if the token is a security, it will be governed by securities laws. So here we're not issuing securities tokens. Also, there are other considerations, for instance, whether the tokens could be payments tokens, and that in some jurisdictions could be already regulated. But let's take back. I think your question really is whether DeFi could be holistically regulated as as a class of its own, as a class of financial services of its own. Remember that financial services is the most heavily regulated industry in the world. That's already a given. And also given that DeFi could fundamentally change financial services, I think it is likely that regulators could look at DeFi more holistically and see where new regulations could fit in. So for instance, the whole reliance on corporate structures or corporate intermediaries, which is conventionally how regulators look at projects, that might need to be tweaked given how DeFi projects are being structured. The other issue is, again, on the whole regulation of algorithms, for instance, which tend to be not as carefully looked on by regulators. I think that could change going forward. Again, we are very sensitive to these very fast changing regulatory framework. Regulators like to issue consultation papers before they introduce new regulations. So there will not be any surprise elements. So we will definitely keep a lookout for this. And of course, we would like to participate in engaging regulators as they think about new regulations. So I hope that answered the questions. All right, let's move on to the next question. This is brings us to question 5, and the issue is purchasing AMPT tokens. This is a question by Aisha Films. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. The question goes, am I right that buying tokens at an earlier stage is more profitable? It is like auction. The more tokens are sold, the higher the price will be. Okay, I'll answer is full. And, we're not in a position to give financial advice, certainly not me as a compliance person. But generally, the whole idea is that if you buy tokens at an earlier stage, so for instance, at a private sale round, typically that gives you the upside potential in the event of a public sale. So if you are interested, please contact our community management team or write to us at biz, at ampt.tech. So again, let me repeat that, biz at ampt.tech. So we're still looking at the best way to offer the tokens to the public. Auctions are definitely an option, but we're also as well looking at initial decentralized offerings or initial exchange offerings, initial farming offering. So the focus really is all on finding the best way going forward, particularly having regard to the interests of our private token purchases. Right? I hope that answers the question. Moving on to question 6, a work in progress for Amplify. This is again a question by Sid Crypto Miner. Was it Side Crypto Miner? Okay. Apologies if I mispronounced your name. So it's not a question, but a request. And the request is as follows. Could you tell us more about the work on the project now? What has already been done and what news await us in the coming weeks? Thank you. So currently, we are in the stage of final testing by the community for version 1.0. We are also working on a wireframe for version 2.0. There will be more engagements with you, the community, to help us in our journey in crystallizing our vision. This platform is built for the community and likewise will be contributed by the community. So whether in technical terms or in commercial terms. Okay. So of course, there will be more announcements. So do look out for it through our usual channels. Moving on to question 7. And this is a personal question directed to me. Why I joined Amplify. So the question is posed by BTC Angel. Yeah, yes, BTC BTC Angel. That's quite an interesting name. Yes, it drives. I mean, if you look at where BTC is, so it's probably in the clouds right now. So Angel is a nice analogy. But the question goes as follows. Hello, Nizam. I'm really curious. With your background, why did you join Amplify? I think it is important for any DeFi project, for any token issuance project, to have a compliance or regulatory person on board, really because you want to do the right things. Personally, for me, I believe in DeFi as being disruptive of conventional financial services. Look, I mean, financial services has morphed over the centuries, right? From the classic brick and mortar business model, where you used to see multiple bank branches with full of human beings and bankers or even broker dealers. That morphed when we went through the dot-com era, and that this whole blockchain-based era is again bringing tremendous disruption to financial services. So it's a belief that I have that DeFi promises the delivery of financial services in a more efficient, in a more customer-centric, customer-focused manner. So personally, I believe Amplify seeks to solve a problem, which is again, financing needs by businesses, and it does bring tremendous value to the whole ecosystem. I also believe the team. We have a great team on board that I believe will be able to execute this well. Right? I hope that answers the question. Okay, next is a question on the Singapore Regulatory Sandbox by NF Crypto. The question goes as follows. I hear there is a sandbox in Singapore for fintech projects. Is that true? And will your project join? Okay. Now, the regulatory sandbox, I think Singapore was one of the first few countries to introduce that, probably the second in the world after the UK. But right now, there are lots of regulatory sandbox models offered by different regulators. So these are meant for experimentation by financial services firms, typically fintech firms. But these are largely meant for licensable activities. So in other words, if you need a license, but you want to be able to go to market earlier, you can apply to the sandbox. However, you must demonstrate a very high level of innovation before you get admitted to the sandbox. But remember, this is only for licensable activities. So as I mentioned before, the activity that we're doing, invoice financing fundamentally, is not a licensable activity. And therefore, the sandbox is probably not an appropriate route for us because we don't need a regulatory license to offer the service. But we are and will be involved in other programs. So let me give you an example. F10 is the first one, and I think we're immensely proud of this. F10 is one of the world's top fintech incubation programs. And Amplify is one of the 10 projects that made it through out of 300 applications. So we've gone through some pretty intense competition to make it to the top 10. I think it's fantastic. The team is very excited. It is a very good start. And now we are in discussion with several chains, evaluating grants, and deciding what we can do to fast track our roadmap and grow it, to benefit the community and the growth in terms of the company as well as product-wise. So I hope that answers the question on the sandbox. Let's move on to question 9. This relates to a general crypto question by the Devs Advocates. Interesting name. The question goes as follows. Hi Nizam, do you think crypto will replace regular currencies? And what do you think about CBDCs? I hope crypto will be the new norm, much better than the current system. Well, that's a bit of crystal ball gazing. Let me answer it this way. if you look how it was previously, and you know, I've been involved in this crypto/blockchain community for probably the last 8-9 years or so. In the early days, when you think of financial services, you think of the conventional financial services, banks, broker-dealers, insurance company, fund managers, etc. And you look at cryptos as this peculiar thing, which is an anomaly. And over the years, what has happened is that crypto, the blockchain-based financial services, is now coming across as an alternate universe. You know, looking at serious ways of disrupting financial services. And interestingly, over the last few years or so, what we have seen is a dovetailing between conventional financial services on the one hand and cryptocurrencies, on the other. I mean, it would have been unthinkable 5-6 years ago to see DBS Bank, which is one of the biggest banks in Singapore, to want to set up a crypto exchange, let alone a digital asset exchange. That's really mind-boggling. And DBS Bank is also planning to offer crypto custody services. And they're not alone. The other banks are doing it. A lot of banks are offering their own coins. CBDCs is now being talked about. So even here in Asia, there are a lot of countries, a lot of jurisdictions that are looking at issuing CBDCs. Although the crypto purists will say that they're not really cryptos because they're issued by central banks. But that aside, I think we are seeing the confluence of the two, the dovetailing between cryptos and conventional financial services. Let's not kid ourselves. I think crypto right now is just a very, very small dot in the ocean when you compare with fiat, right? But it certainly has made a lot of inroads. It certainly has gotten a lot of regulators very, very interested. And it has certainly, caught on with a lot of major banks in the world. And if you look at some of the speeches made by the supranational bodies, the IMF, for instance, the Financial Action Task Force, they are looking at creating new regulatory frameworks for cryptos, and that's only really because these supranational regulators see the growing importance of cryptocurrencies in the entire financial services universe. So I think when you look at the trend lines, I think it'll just be a matter of time before cryptos will be the new norm. So I share your optimism, right? And I hope I answered the question. So again, thank you very much for asking those great questions. So remember, look out for the winner. We will announce that through our social media channels. Also, just a reminder that we are looking for ambassadors to help us turn this Amplify vision into reality. So you can contact our community managers for more information. And yeah, we like doing this, so we will have more AMAs in the future. So do look out for that. And again, thank you very much for supporting Amplify, and stay safe, everyone. All right, cheers.